Welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. This week we have Beryl Young. Beryl is the founder and CEO of Momtography, a photography education community for moms who want to capture what matters and create a life they love. As a former elementary school teacher, she followed her love of teaching and passion for photography to develop the Momtography Method, fostering connection, creativity, and confidence in moms using a camera as a guide. Now, Momtography is helping thousands of women around the world through a network of clubs that have been established across the U.S. and courses that help women capture, develop, and preserve more of their memories. So the reason I had Beryl on the program is that sometimes in our change of menopause and empty nest, we're left with emptiness. We're left with a need to fill a void. And picking up a hobby such as photography can help fill that void. And so we had a nice conversation around her experience with menopausal and empty nesters, menopausal women and empty nesters. We talked a bit about servicing your camera. We talked a lot about the technical aspects of photography, which I find to be fascinating. I'm actually an amateur photographer with a lot of pro equipment. We've talked about how to foster your creativity and curiosity and really just the love of photography. Now, at the end of this episode, make sure you visit our website where you can find the show notes plus the links mentioned in the show to Momtography and the Momtography clubs, and an opportunity actually, if you're looking for some sort of a side hustle or if you're looking to start a business, to work with Beryl to create your own Momtography club with her. And to get to that, you want to go to drmichellegordon.com/podcasts. That's Dr. Michelle, Michelle, Gordon, Gordon, all one word, and then a slash and podcast. That's podcasts. Don't forget the S. CASTS. And I hope you enjoy this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe and review the podcast. And I'm just excited to bring this to you. Oh, and if you got a camera, if you happen to get a camera for Christmas, this is the best place to go to learn how to use it. And so without further ado, here is my conversation with Beryl. Hi, and welcome back to the Menopause Movement Podcast. We've got Beryl Young here today. I'm so excited, Beryl, to have you here. Beryl is a photographer. She does photography education. And the reason I brought her on is because I noticed that as I started to have an empty nest, I was looking for some sort of a hobby or something, and I'd always had some interest in photography. My father was a photographer, and he was an avid photographer, and so he taught me kind of how to frame a shot and things like that. And as I got older, I think in my 40s, my late 40s, I took a photography class, and I was like, this is kind of fun. But then I never finished it. And so then I got to a point where I was like, okay, let me really get serious about this. And I got through the class and then was able to use my camera in some pretty cool ways. So Beryl, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about empty nest and your experience in working with empty nesters.
Yeah. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit
Sure.
into kind of my entry into photography, because I think I'm a little bit younger. I'm not quite premenopausal yet, but I'm getting there.
That's okay.
But I found photography like a lot of young moms do, which is when I had kids, because digital photography has totally changed the world of photography in a huge way. And so I started my business during this really transitional time. We had a pregnancy loss before we had our current, I have a 9-year-old now.
Sorry about that.
And yeah, and I bring that up just because it was this big, huge life moment that led me to discovering photography. It was kind of this breakdown, transitional, grief-stricken time.
Yeah.
And that was when I found my camera, and then I was inspired to start this business and learn professional photography and start teaching other women. And so my company, Momtography, was really founded on this. Well, I can teach you photography, but photography is really just going to be a tool to help you through life's big transitions. And, 8, 9 years into having a business, I can say that now, but like, I didn't know that when I started it. That was
Yeah.
like, I was just doing it because I loved it. And so it was really about 5 or 6 years ago that I started to get a lot of empty nester moms who were like, wait, but I love photography too. Can you teach me? Do I belong here? My kids are out of the house. And it was from working with kind of like multi-generational women and moms that I realized that like, oh, photography is just this touch point to tell our life stories, no matter kind of where we are in it. And so I was really excited to come on your show because I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of empty nester moms over the last several years.
Yeah. One of the things I really like about being an older person is that, I won't have any grandchildren myself, but what's nice is that seeing these children and then being able to give them back. Right. And grandparents, want to take good pictures of their children and their grandchildren, I think. And so I think there's always, especially if you want to learn something, there's always, if you're like me, an avid learner, I'm always reading books. I'm always looking at new ways to learn something. That learning a skill like photography can play out in so many ways.
Yeah, and I think, you don't have to be taking pictures of your kids or of somebody
Yeah.
else's kids or of people. I know that you personally like taking
Yeah.
photos of nature and travel and things like that. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a whole world that opens up for being able to learn and still feeling connected in a way to your creativity and to yourself just by kind of learning photography as a skill.
Yeah. And it's funny because I on my iPhone, right, I have the rule of thirds. I have that grid there and I use it. But what would you say is like the number one biggest challenge that you find people who are wanting to come into photography, right, that they encounter?
Gosh, there's a couple that come top of mind. So, I work with a lot of moms that are going to be heavily vested in photography. So they go out and buy like the fancy camera.
Yeah.
And so the first question that I get is, what camera do I buy? And that's top of mind for me right now because I just
Yeah.
went out and bought another camera this week. I feel
Well,
like
we say in cycling that the proper number of bicycles is n+1, and I think that also applies to photography and
photography.
cameras, yeah, and
Yeah.
lenses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Photography is an expensive hobby, but it's
yeah,
one that really is super fulfilling as well. But I get that question a lot, like, especially now that technology has evolved. It's, gosh, is my phone good enough, or do I need the fancy camera, or do I get a film camera? Or like, then there's all the different brands, Canon, Nikon, Fuji, Sony. Like, it's, what do I buy? What's going to fit my needs? And then once you learn a little bit, then you realize it's not just the camera, it's the lenses that you put on that camera. So
mm,
what lenses do I need? So there's the questions about the equipment. But then my background is as an educator. I was an elementary school educator for years, and I taught technology for 7 of those years to teachers. And so I realized as I was figuring out, okay, I love photography and I love technology. Camera is just a big piece of technological equipment, and it's complicated. The like thing that you like to do with your camera, you may not need to use every single button and dial and setting on your camera. So there can be fear involved with picking up the camera and using it because it's like,
mhm.
oh gosh, is this moment going to be gone by the time I figure out these settings? Or how do I make my photos look like that professional photographer's over there? Those are the things that I hear the most often as being those like early struggles.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. I just got this new phone, right? This is the
Do you have the Pro or
No,
the Pro? No. Okay.
I decided that I was done. I'm done at the Apple 10 right now. I have a 10.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a 10 Plus, and I didn't get the new 11. But this is
the 11. Yep.
this is the Samsung S10 Plus. And what's interesting on this phone, I'll show you. Let me just bring up the camera. It's got a Pro feature. So
very cool.
So it's showing the back. So let me, I don't want to show the front, but what you can see in there are all those things there. These are everything that you can control. So you can control the ISO, you can control the shutter speed. You just can't, it's stuck, the aperture's stuck at 1.5.
Okay.
Which is not bad. You know, it's pretty nice. It's a nice glass. So you can't change it. And you can change the white balance. So those are, you know, I haven't seen that ever on a digital camera of, you know, on a phone.
Yeah, there's like third-party apps that can do that, but it is kind of neat that it's embedded in the camera. So now you don't, to learn the photography skills, you don't have to necessarily go out and buy the super expensive camera to start. You can
you can start working on that. Yeah. So after somebody buys their first camera, so let's say, so usually when people ask me what kind of camera should I buy as an entry level, I'll usually say, get something with a fixed lens, but that has features that you can manipulate. So, you know, like the Nikon 900 series, for example, and that's got a really good, because it goes a lot of digital zoom. So especially if you're doing wildlife, I took one of those with me to Africa and got some really fantastic wildlife photos, just because, you know, but the problem was the buffering. So I'm trying to do speed shots and it would stop, you know, taking pictures of hippos with their mouths open, and then it was buffering, and you know, so it wasn't as good. And that's when I went ahead and splurged for the D5, but that's a $5,000 piece of, you know, just a camera back, you know, so that was, but you can do, you know, 12 shots per second.
Very cool. Yeah. I have never upgraded to something that was that high level professional. And I think it is important to kind of ask yourself, okay, what are your goals with this camera? And what is your budget for equipment? But what you just said about the fixed lens, photographers call those prime lenses. They don't zoom in and out.
No. This is a zoomer. I'm not talking about.
It's a point and shoot. The Nikon 900.
Yeah. Except for the 900 series has a really good series of. So I'm not a professional photographer, so I say a fixed lens. I'm not talking about primes. I'm talking about one that you can't. There's no exchangeable lens, but it has a zoom.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the lenses don't interchange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody wants one of the interchangeable type cameras, I recommend that they get one with a no zoom feature for two reasons. One, it will allow you to learn how the camera works a whole lot better. The pictures are a lot crisper and clearer. But then I also think not being able to zoom in and out forces you to think more creatively about where you need to stand and position yourself. Now, for your trip to Africa, I would not recommend taking a fixed lens. You need to be able to zoom, which is why, like, some of it comes back to, what is your purpose? What do you want to do with the equipment? Do you take most of your pictures inside? Do you need low light capabilities? That's another thing that I hear about a lot. So
that's what I like about the D5. It's really, really good in low light.
Exactly.
Really, really good in low light. And the pictures turn out okay and not too grainy. But when I went to the Arctic and took pictures of polar bears, as a matter of fact, I think let me just see, I might be able to share with you. So here's
the benefit of a video-based podcast is you can share images, which is very exciting.
So there's one of my polar bear photos from the Arctic. Can you see it?
Yeah, it looks amazing. Now, what camera did you use for that one?
So this is a Nikon D5 with a 200 to 500, probably at a 5.6, probably. Maybe a little less because it was pretty bright.
You have some serious gear then, if you have a lens that will zoom in that far. That's like some serious equipment.
So I have the 200 to 500, and I also have the Nikon, what you like to call trifecta, right? So I have the 20, what is it, 12 to 24, 24 to 70, and 70 to 200, 2.8. But I have a story. I have a story.
I want to hear the story.
Yeah. So I have the Nikon. Man, I wish I'd brought it downstairs. I have the Nikon. It was the Nikon 2.8, 24-70, which is like a workhorse. It's a workhorse lens. You use it all the time. And we were in Cape Cod, and we had just like come off of a boat. We'd gone fishing, and we went to eat lunch, and I set my camera down on the table, and I thought I set it down properly, and it fell down, and the lens completely snapped.
Oh my gosh.
It's a $1,500 lens.
I was going to say, this is not an inexpensive lens.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, let's see. What do I have to do now? So I had to walk back to the car, put a different lens on the camera, because I wanted to protect the camera. The camera was fine. Those things are, that was the D5.
Right.
Those things last for a long time. And then I had to decide, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to replace this lens with this? And actually ended up getting a Tamron. Same Tamron 2.8.
Yeah. And those are the off, they're not off brand. They're just that they specialize in making lenses for the camera. They don't necessarily make their own cameras. They're a little bit less expensive than like your Canon or your Nikon.
Right. I mean, it's just because you're not paying for the brand. Yeah.
Right. But they're great lenses. So
no, it was, I went to, one of the good reviewers like Rockwell or something like that. And I said, let me just see, because I'm really a hobbyist. And so let me play with it. And then if I want to spend more money, then I'll just buy the Nikon again, or I'll send this one in to get fixed, which I might do anyway. It probably still cost me $1,000.
Don't know until you send it back.
That's true. But that's what we saw. I just, I wanted to show you that's what we saw in the Arctic, and that, what was challenging for me, and probably you see this a lot. What was challenging for me was when I took these photographs, they all turned out gray. Because of the white background. And so do you want to speak a little bit about how the light meter works and why? I mean, I know this is a little bit advanced. So for people who aren't photographers, well, you talk about it. I'll let you talk about how the light meter works.
So I'll share a little bit about like technical photography. But before I do that, I also want to just bring up the power of photo editing too, because we teach more than just like the how to use your camera. So when you said like, oh, the photos looked a little bit like gray, sometimes straight out of camera, if the light isn't, doing exactly what you want it to, it's a overcast day or it's cold, and I'm sure it's probably pretty overcast. It wasn't like bright sunlight.
Right.
The images can look a little bit dull, but I always encourage people, well, like now we have the power to put those photos on our computer and boost the saturation, boost the contrast, boost the colors. So part of it is the technical side. How can we like get, the photo that we kind of picture in our head right when we take the photo? But there's also photo editing.
Yeah.
and that's another creative endeavor that can be really fun for people too.
Yeah. I find it to be very tedious. I don't like the photo editing side of things.
Yeah, well, you either love it or you hate it. You're a very busy woman, so it's probably the thing. You're like, okay, I want to go out and take pictures of my life. I don't want to sit behind this computer and actually process them. I don't know. I go through phases of loving photo editing and not loving photo editing. But to kind of speak to your technical question without like teaching a 2-hour class.
Yeah, right. No, listen, you want to know more, you're going to have to buy Beryl's course.
No, so the camera is essentially a big light box.
Right.
And there's 3 main settings that you have to know in order to get a proper exposure or to get the photo the way you want it to look. You have to know shutter speed, you have to know ISO, and you have to know aperture. And shutter speed is the easiest for people to kind of conceptualize. That's how quick or how slow the camera is taking the photo. And if you have something that's moving quickly, you want a fast shutter speed. If there's like creative things you can do with slow shutter speed, but the less light you have, the slower your camera can work. And that's why people end up with me when they're taking pictures of their kiddos in a dark room while they're like running around, because it's like, oh gosh, this camera won't work inside. And you just have to know how to utilize the rest of your settings a little bit more.
Bump up your ISO a bit.
Yeah, see, So ISO is the second part of the exposure triangle, and I call that ingredient the light booster. So basically, when you are in a situation that doesn't have light, boosting the ISO or using a higher number for your ISO allows the camera to process the photo quicker, essentially, without giving a super huge lesson. So when you increase the ISO in low light, your shutter speed gets faster. And then the third part of that triangle is aperture. And that is really controlled by your camera's lens, whatever the lens is on the camera. It doesn't have anything to do with the camera body. I call that the creative control ingredient. It opens or closes the lens to let more light in and out. But this is the other question that I get from everybody that has just recently bought a DSLR and wants to know how to use it is, how do I get that beautiful blurry background that professionals can get? And the aperture controls the depth of field or the depth of focus. So whatever your camera focuses on, the smaller the aperture number, the narrower the depth of field gets. So then the background blurs out. And whatever the camera chooses as the focus point is what ends up crisp and clear and in focus. And so once you're shooting in full manual mode, you are controlling those settings yourself. Essentially, you're picking what ISO is correct, what aperture you want for the photo you're taking, and then your light meter, which you just referred to, is this. When you look through the camera's viewfinder, there's a plus and a minus, and you're essentially setting your shutter speed, faster or slower, to get the proper amount of brightness or lightness in your picture. So that is the 5-minute crash course.
That's amazing.
Technical
that's really
photography.
So when things, I think one of the things that for me, especially when I first started, was how come, I take this picture and it doesn't look like it looks with my eye. And, I think that's, as far as technical photography goes, that's really our big thing. We either want it to look just like it would if we were looking through our eyes, or then we're going to do some things that are really creative with a slower shutter speed or a wider aperture or something like that. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And how long would you say that it takes somebody to learn independence from the automatic function?
Oh gosh, that's I've worked with over 1,000 students, and my blanket answer is it depends. But we have a 6-week course an online based course where we can comfortably get someone shooting in manual mode. It also really depends on your background and your level of experience before you come in. Because, I get some students that, like you, had a parent who was a professional photographer or someone that loved photography. They've sort of learned things through picking them up on the internet or watching a YouTube video, but they still just can't seem to put all the things together. And someone like that has the light bulb moment and it just flips on and they're good to go. I think it also depends on what you're shooting. You can conceptually understand how to set all these settings until you get into a situation where a wedding where the moments are happening really fast and it's high pressure, or kids that are running around, or a sporting event, and then that fear of oh gosh, am I going to be able to figure this out during the moment kind of sets in.
Well, I think that with the advent, when I first took photography, digital photography was still in its infancy, and I had a D2X at that time, and I still have that camera.
Yay. I know. It's you kind of collect them over the years and then you're I can't let go. It's a baby.
I need to Marie Kondo my whole life. But so when I was taking this, I took the New York Institute of Professional Photography's course, and they were still talking a lot about film. So when I took that, I bought a film camera and I realized I didn't need to. And with the advent of digital photography, we can look, right immediately and get feedback and then make our adjustments. And that's what's so great. And while at a sporting event, you may not be able to as quickly, let's say your grandchild is, running a race, you may not be able to fix that perfectly. The beauty of digital, the digital darkroom is that, most of the time you can fix it if there's a problem with the light or something.
Totally. And for any of your community that's watching this, if they have grandchildren or children they're trying to capture, our community manager, Jen, over at Momtography likes to say that children repeat moments a lot. So you might be like freaking out because your family, your grandchild is doing something really, really cute. And it's like, oh gosh, I missed that moment. But chances are is they will repeat it in some different way. And digital photography does allow you to very quickly go, okay, let me tweak that. Let me try it again.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then with software, one of the things in the iPhone, for example, where'd my iPhone go? Here it is. They have this portrait mode, right? And that's what we were talking a bit about. So if you go, you look at the
I like that you have the Samsung and the iPhone.
Yeah.
Like, wait,
Well,
that's my other phone.
Yeah. Well, the reason, I mean, because I work, I'm a surgeon,
right?
and
I
have to take calls. So I have both phones, but that's why I decided to go with it. I haven't had a Samsung. My last Samsung was a 4S. And so this is a 10S Plus. And so it's been a long time since I've had a Samsung. And I thought, the next new phone should be a Samsung. I want to see how good they are. But on the, on the iPhone, which is, my primary phone, is this portrait mode, and so what we like to see is this nice blurred background. And what Apple did was they said, okay, well, we can fix this with software. And so you can do the portrait mode with your, in the front camera so that you get a nice blurry background. Or you can do, it with, with an object and get a nice blurry background. And then we have it a step further where you take one of those portrait modes and you upload it to Facebook, and Facebook turns it into a 3D photo.
Yeah, that's kind of wild to see when people post the 3D photos. I haven't done that too much with my own, but that was very cool when Facebook was like, ooh, we'll one up this technology a little bit more and make it even more fun.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked too much about phone photography, but your phone can do a lot now, and you can get very creative with the phone. I don't think you can make your phone's images still like look exactly like they would from a professional level quality product, but you can start to just play with those settings. And portrait mode on the iPhone can help you learn what that depth of field or depth of focus can look like and what that means. So that, if you ever decide to go to something more professionally based, you kind of know what you're looking for.
Yeah. So here's a photo that I took with the Samsung. It's not really coming up well, but that's just like after a run, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't have to do much with it, but I was going to show people there is this little feature that we don't know a whole lot about that isn't very often shown on the iPhone. So here is a picture that I took on the iPhone, right? And so it's already set to be like a little loop, right? But if you do, I don't know if people know this, but if you take your phone and you go up, there's all these effects that you can do. And so if you want to have like that nice soft look of a waterfall looking like a pillow coming down, you just got to go to the blur effect. And a lot of people don't know about that option on the iPhone.
Yeah, that it's there. Yep. That's when you're viewing the photos after the fact.
Right. And you have to shoot them as a live, they take a little video.
The live photos. Yeah.
Okay. So that's pretty fun. So in terms of let's move back. Let's say we have our DSLR. It's our first one. We've gone, some exotic place, let's say we've gone to Angkor Wat, for example, taken a whole ton of pictures, right? And every photo has a spot on it.
Are you speaking from personal experience?
Of course. But it's something that I see. Yeah, no, I see a lot. Like when I actually went to Myanmar, and I had the Sony A6, I think. It was one of their first digital interchangeable lens cameras. And when I went back and looked at the photos, every single photo had a little spot on it because I didn't understand something. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
It could be one of two things that I'm thinking of. Either you have to make sure you clean the sensor on your camera, and that you get kind of the insides cleaned. I would suggest taking that to a professional to have it done. Some cameras have an automatic sensor cleaning, but it's still good to get like your cameras, if you have a DSLR camera, to get it serviced here and there. But the lenses can also get spots on them. So you could have a speck
Ding,
of
ding,
dirt
ding, ding, ding.
like on the lens.
Yeah.
And it may be on the inside of the lens. It may be if you put a filter on top of your lens, it could be a speck that ended up, underneath the filter or whatever. So it could be any one of those things, which is annoying.
So I'm gonna tell you that this is when I first got my first interchangeable lens camera. It came with some filters. I just put them all on.
Mm-hmm.
I just put all the filters on.
All right, well,
let's just put all 3 on and just take pictures through them.
That's so funny. You're like, try them all.
Yeah. Do you ever use that filter that has like light on the top and dark on the bottom?
I don't. I tell people that I have a UV filter on my camera to protect the lens, but I'm like, anything that a filter would do, I could do in editing. So, but if you don't like editing, the filters may make sense for you. I just sort of keep it simple.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you were talking for a second there about servicing your camera, right? So when do you recommend that if you have a DSLR, let's say it's a, interchangeable lens DSLR, really, high-end camera, how many shots should?
Oh gosh, this is a do as I say, not as I do. I don't think I've ever gotten any of my cameras serviced. So,
do you clean your own sensor?
No. Okay. But I also haven't had that issue of noticing a whole lot of specks or dirt or things on the lens. I had a new enough equipment that it was kind of doing some of that automatic sensor cleaning. So, I am not one that's specifically good. It's not like a car, right? Like every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, you need to go get an oil change. I would say if you notice something that feels off with your camera or wrong, or like it does, have some of that dirt or spots, then go get it done. Some people that I've taught are a once a year, like there's a local camera shop, I take it in, they do it for me. But yeah, I'm not gonna like pretend to be like somebody that actually goes and does that, because I don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've had to send my camera in a couple times, like, my D2X, I made the mistake of switching lenses in the wind, and something got stuck up under there. And then I thought I could clean the sensor myself because I raised the mirror, and then I screwed it up. So I think it's a lot easier to clean your sensor on the mirrorless, but you have to invest in the right equipment.
That is very true too.
You don't have the right.
And you can probably YouTube to find something that'll show you how to clean it yourself, so you don't like damage anything.
Right. That's what I did. But it's just, I got some disposable things that I could clean the sensor with. But I think it's really important that, let's say you're out there, taking pictures, wherever you are, you want to just make sure you take a look before you take a picture at your lens to make sure that there's no spots. Because the spots don't pay it. You can't see them until you get into post sometimes.
Yeah, and not all those spots can be edited out. It really depends on where they are in the shot and how they look. And that's really obnoxious to have to go through one photo at a time to update those. So
I know, I've done it. Yeah, so that's like a big tip, I think, for people. So I think that learning photography can be a really great way to maybe take up your time when you had an empty nest. Do you have any other thoughts or recommendations for the audience here?
Just around the importance of creativity. And I think for your audience specifically, like I had a client that I worked with for 4 years. Well, she had 2 sons. They were both in college when we started working together. And she had been at home raising them. She had a career as a chemist before they were born, then stayed home with them. When they both went off to college, she was like, I don't even know what to do with myself. And, I'll kind of take us back to where we started about menopause being this big time of transition for women. That sometimes coincides with your kids leaving the house and empty nesting. A lot of times it does.
Definitely.
And so not only are there all those hormonal changes happening in your body, but you're also dealing with this life circumstance. And she would come to me, and we coached together for so long. She was like, I think I want to have a business after, she kind of sent her kids off to school. I have time for that now. And we kind of dabbled in helping her build kind of this side hustle-y, like creative business. But the thing that I think kept us working together for 4 years was, she's like, I get this connection to my creativity that I haven't done in so long. And I need those reminders to keep doing that for myself, because, it's a little bit of like a distraction, but a little bit of that, like, oh, I need to rediscover who I am in this kind of act 3 of my life. And so your empty nester women that are sitting here listening to this, maybe in that place of, what do I do with myself? Can I start a business? Can I do this in this stage of life? And I would say that you can. Another strong example for me is my mom. My mom basically stayed home and raised my sister and I. And my sister and I, we both got our kind of creative side from her. She dabbled in art all while we were growing up. But now that my dad's retired, she has us out of the house, she's built herself an art studio and is creating beautiful works of art. And it was actually her that was like, there is a real opportunity for your photography education to really touch women's lives in like all the stages of their life and not just when they have kids. Yeah. So I think it's that connection to kind of creativity and curiosity and where that can kind of lead you.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Creativity and curiosity. So interestingly, a lot of women who follow me are entrepreneurs. And, they've maybe given up a corporate career, gotten to the end of their life, or they've always had their own job. But there might be some who also have an entrepreneurial bent. And do you have an offering that might work for them?
So, yes.
Well,
why,
what do you
yes?
know? No, actually, and I just want to say here that I didn't plan on this. When I do these interviews, none of them are scripted, you guys. And I just happen to know that Beryl does have something that may work for some of you, but this wasn't planned at all. We didn't
know
beforehand. So I think she's completely surprised that I brought this up.
Well, Michelle and I met through a business coaching experience this year. And so she's seen kind of the evolution of where our photography education and courses and trainings and everything have gone. But we're actually going through a pivot isn't the right word. It's more of a scale of our company. And so, the one other opportunity that I haven't really shared, because like the creative process is really important to me. But when I started my photography education, I was doing all in-person classes. And I live outside of the Washington, D.C. area. And so I was teaching courses. And there was just like this magic that would happen when women would get together live and in person. And when somebody takes one of our photography classes, I know that like learning photography is a never ending, like you can buy a new piece of equipment, you can get a lens, you can learn a new skill. And so people were constantly asking me, what do I do next? Where do I go next? And I didn't always have that like, oh, go do this thing that we have to offer. And so like the light bulb went off a couple months ago. And I was like, why are we not creating a network of photography clubs for moms and women after they do their photography education to meet and share and connect and be in community with one another around something that they love? And the idea of a photography club is not unique in and of itself. But for me, like our local photography club is a lot of retirees that love taking nature photography, and that's not a problem. But being a busy mom with young children, they either didn't meet at the right time or the meeting was like 40 minutes away from my house. Like it was very difficult to get to those meetings. And I was like, why don't we just create an experience of clubs that is specifically dedicated to the experience of being a mom or being a woman or being a caregiver and wanting to connect around our creativity and have that time planned and in our schedule month to month. So we are kind of starting to put the legs on this and putting it out into the world. And so we're looking for community leaders to come and, spearhead these clubs in different cities around the United States and hopefully around the world eventually. But then we also certify people in our method to do local, like deep dive classes in their towns as well. So yeah, if anyone's interested in knowing more about that, I can definitely share with them.
Well, we're going to hook that up in the show notes. We'll definitely hook up your course in the show notes, and then the people can contact you about the club meetings, going forward, especially those who are, entrepreneurial and looking for something more. And if you're a photographer who's already got some sort of a business, this opportunity to have get-togethers and perhaps create some sort of income for yourself is also a certainly an opportunity more than anything else. If you're already somebody who teaches photography or enjoys photography and wouldn't mind, would like to teach it and do some more learning and teaching, certainly I think that these meetups would be really great. What is it called? The Momtography
Club.
The Momtography Club. Momtography Club. So, and you don't have to be a mom to be a part of it.
No, we like to say that at Momtography, being a mom just means you're a caregiver, whether that means you're caring for yourself or for your pets or for your aging parents. Like, you don't have to be a mom in the traditional sense to
that's great.
Come participate.
So, I think there's, we could probably go on and on, talking about technical photography and everything else, but I want to be mindful of your time. Is there anything else that you'd like to offer the audience at this point about, breaking in, if they've never, let's say somebody who's never had a camera and is afraid to even think about it, what would you say to them?
Come take Momtography. No, just kidding. No, I would say that it's not as difficult as you're making it out in your head. There's just a lot of information out there, and sometimes you just need the step by step process. And our business mentor likes to talk about taking the exact next step on your journey and not worrying about everything else. I tell people to kind of look at what is frustrating you about your photography and what can you learn about that specific thing next. It's not always about the camera. It's about that photography journey.
Sure. Sometimes it's about us too. Sometimes it's about where the frustrations are for us. And then those frustrations that we're holding on to can also spill out into even, our creativity or our relationships or anything like that. But having an outlet, a creative outlet, is really important, I think, in terms of our overall well-being.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think being a creative, and you are a creative as well, we often doubt, am I good enough to do this? Should I even be doing this? Like, creatives desire to create, but then they worry.
Who am I to put myself?
Who am I to do this?
Yeah. There's a lot of imposter syndrome out there.
Mm-hmm.
I like to tell this story, when it comes to imposter syndrome, when I first opened my practice as a surgeon. So I just completed my residency. Now, mind you, that's 15 years of training. And I went and opened my practice, and I was operating. And I remember I had this a moment. I was walking through the hospital. I'm like, well, when are they going to find out I don't know what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so if anybody's ever felt that way, you're not alone. We all feel this way. And in my program, in the Minnow system, we do talk about, kind of getting us from where we are, maybe feeling, unsure or having some anxiety, to feeling really sure about ourselves and having personal mastery. And that's what that's all about. But, mastery over the camera can be part of that.
Exactly. Well,
so Beryl,
mastery over yourself. Mastery over yourself means figuring out what you like and what feels good in the moment. So
yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being a guest on the Menopause Movement podcast. We're going to make sure we hook up all of your information in the show notes, and make sure that, to learn more about the Momtography Club and Momtography in general, go to drmichellgordon.com/podcasts. That's with an S. Don't forget. And look up Beryl's Look up this Beryl's podcast. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon, and I wanted to take a moment to share what one of our community members has achieved since she's been working with me. Amanda has had an amazing transformation. Amanda was struggling with joint pain, hot flashes, forgetfulness, sleeplessness, weight gain, and an angry mood. In addition, she lost her confidence and self-worth as menopause crept up on her. Since joining the Menopause Movement membership, Amanda's quality of life has improved in ways no one could have predicted. She has truly transcended the symptoms of menopause and is now living her best life. This is what I want for everyone in the community. Take a listen to Amanda's story. I just want to show you what's possible when you join the community and do the work. Transcendence is available for you, too. Now here's Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I am 54 years old and I live in the UK. At this moment in time, I'm in a fairly good place in my life. Recently, I've lost 18 pounds and I feel healthier and more content than I have done in a long time. However, it hasn't always been this way. Back in October 2011, I had an accident which resulted in a serious injury and surgery and subsequently changed my life forever. And over the next few years during my recovery, menopause crept up on me, but I didn't realise what was happening straight away. I started suffering from more joint pain. I went from always being cold to feeling like I was going to internally combust several times a day. I was getting really forgetful, my sleep pattern was terrible, I piled the weight on and looked pregnant, and I felt angry all the time. When things were at their worst, I felt incredibly alone and very down. I lost my confidence and self-worth, and I felt completely misunderstood and confused about what was happening to me. I received very little support or information from my GP, and there was limited information on the internet, but what I really wanted and needed was someone to talk to. The turning point for me was at the beginning of July 2019, when completely by accident, I came across Dr. Michelle Gordon's Facebook page on the menopause movement. At that time, she was doing daily live streams and I started listening to them. I related to a lot of what she was saying and I was really interested in the variety of topics about menopause that she was talking about, the alternative ways to manage menopause symptoms in a more natural way, and how your mindset is the key factor to transforming your life more positively. I was also really interested to listen to the other ladies in the group and what they had to say. Ladies who had been or were still suffering from similar symptoms to me. How a lot of them have been able to manage their symptoms much better and how they have turned their lives around and embraced menopause instead of treating it like a demon. Although nervous about taking a risk to join a group I didn't know, I knew that I couldn't and didn't want to carry on living my life the way I was and feeling the way I was feeling. So I made a decision that I too wanted to learn more about menopause, how to manage my symptoms better, and most importantly, learn more about my mindset and the fact that I needed help with changing my outlook on life in order for me to get it back. Life is nowhere near perfect, and some days I still have my struggles. But on the whole, I can honestly say that I am in a much better place than I have been for a long time. And for my down days, I understand better how to manage them so they don't get out of hand. I am now on a journey with a fantastic community of like-minded women, all of whom continue to support each other no matter where we all live. And I no longer feel confused, misunderstood, worthless or alone. For me, this group has been both a lifesaver and a life changer. And most importantly, the one-to-one private coaching sessions that are available with Dr. Gordon as part of the membership have been invaluable to me. They provide me with an opportunity to discuss more difficult and private issues that I am struggling with, and an opportunity to find solutions to address them. Without doubt, I can wholeheartedly say that I owe Dr. Gordon and her group everything for showing me how to take my life back and, more importantly, take control of it. Joining her membership has been the best thing that I have ever done. However, this course is not for everyone. If you're looking for a quick fix that doesn't cost you any time, money or effort, then this is not the group for you. But if you're in a similar situation to how I was not that long ago, feeling desperate and at the end of your tether, but are willing to invest in your own future happiness and peace of mind, but are unsure as to what to do, ask questions and talk to Dr. Gordon. And if you choose to take that leap of faith, you won't regret it, because who wouldn't want to take their life back if they had the chance?
If you are feeling like Amanda, you're not alone. There is help for you in the Menopause Movement membership. I want to help you transcend your symptoms and live your best life. To discover how you can become a part of this life-changing community, go to menopausemovement.com.